this is the index of VirtualBox. If you want any version of VirtualBox, here is where you can get it, VirtualBox. And for this case, I think I used VirtualBox 6 and installed it, so it shouldn't be any problem. What I'll do is now I'll open up that VirtualBox, and we have said the good thing about VirtualBox, it will help us simulate virtually any operating system on our machine. I'll just open it right here. And this is the welcome screen or the startup screen of the VirtualBox. And right over here, we have the tools. We have the file. If you want to do your settings, if you want to import any appliances, you can use this file. If you also want to close or exit the VirtualBox, you can do that. In this case, what you need to do, we need to add a new machine. The second toolbar or taskbar thing option is for machine, and here is where you can click on new or you add. And here on the right, we also have those two options. If we want to create a new one, we can just create a new one, and if you want to add, let's say, an existing one, we can click the add button. And in this case, since we don't have any machines, we want to create a new one, and that new one will be Android. So what I'll do is I'll just click on new and specify some details of my operating system that I want to add. So just click on new, and then I'll name it. Here there's something. If anyone has a question, they can type the question on the chat, or they can raise up their hand. Feel free to interrupt me at any time if you might have a question. So I'll just get rid of the infinity and go back to my VirtualBox. And in this case, what I've clicked is that I have clicked on new, and it has given me this window. The reason why it's giving me a window that looks like this is I'm using VirtualBox, what do you call it, version 6. I'll send a link to download this version 6 if you want to follow what I have done here. So you just name your operating system. In this case, I will be installing Android, and I'll just say Android, and then I'll give it the machine folder. I can just leave it as is. The type will be Android is Linux based. So Android is Linux. You select on Linux, and then the version of Linux. These are some of the different Linux versions. So for Android, we'll just say, you scroll down and then say it's other Linux 64-bit. Just call it other Linux 64-bit, and then you click on next. Here is where you assign it its memory. So you just give it how much RAM will the Android device have. In my case, I think you should not compromise on your machine's RAM. You recall we were checking up our RAMs. So these are places where you need to be careful and know how much your RAM your device has. So in my case, I have just 12 gigs of RAM. I have 12 GB of RAM, and that means I cannot give it so much RAM. I can give it, like, let's say 4 gigs of RAM. I can say 4096. 4 gigs of RAM, I think is, but that's too much. Let me give it just 2 GB. 2048, it should be something, yeah. 2 GB. Let me just give it. So now this will specify the RAM of your Android device. If you wanted to have quite a lot of RAM, you can specify it here. The next step, on this step, I mean. Then click on next. Ensure you create a virtual hard disk, because now this will be the disk. This will be like the internal storage of your Android device. I'll say yes, create a virtual hard disk, and specify the first option. So here it's just a matter of like clicking next, next, next. Dynamically allocated. This means that it will readjust its size to dynamically. It will use, and note this, that this will use the space on your hard disk. So you also need to have enough space. I would say you should have enough space for, like, let's say 15 GB plus free, that is free, or 15 GB that you can spare. And in this case, you can see that it has allocated like 8 GB. 8 GB is the recommended minimum. And now we can create, and it has created now our system. It has created the Android system. What I need to now specify next is to specify the ISO we downloaded. So by doing this process, ensure that you already have downloaded the ISO file. You see this one? The first one here is the ISO file that I had shared the link to download this ISO file. When I go to my downloads, this is the Android ISO file that I had provided you with the link to download. So ensure you have the ISO file, because these are this is the major file that you will require for the different operating systems. If you want to install for Windows, have a Windows ISO. If you want to install for Linux, have a Linux ISO. Even for Mac OS, it will be something like that, but for that you will have to go through some few processes here and there. But you'll just require this ISO file, because even for those who know how to install using a flash disk, you have to create a bootable flash disk using an ISO file. And this is the ISO file I will be specifying for my machine. And after I have created the virtual hard disk and finished up and gotten to this screen, I can now start my virtual machine, and it will ask me which is the ISO file or the startup disk that I want to start the machine with. So I'll just click on start. After clicking on start, I think it's delaying this because we are doing so many processes. We are recording, we are on a call, we are sharing our screen. So if it takes some time, just let's give it the benefit of doubt. And in this case, you can see that I don't have a startup disk. The startup disk represents a disk image. And as you can see, it's telling me no disk image files available. You can create or add. What I'll do is I'll click on the folder icon to add my disk image, and then I'll click on the add icon plus add, and then I'll specify now where I have downloaded my Android ISO, which is in my downloads, and then click on the Android ISO and then open it up and click on choose. Just choose on it, and after I've chosen it, start. And after starting, this will now start the virtual machine using that ISO, and it actually now takes me to this window. This window that now will allow me to actually install Android on my virtual hard drive. So now this is the kind of installation screen you would see if you're installing something like Linux or Windows. Windows also has its own. I don't know whether I have a Windows ISO, but we'll see whether we can look for it. So what I'll select for this Android, I'll just need for it to install automatically. What I'll do, if you want it to install automatically, just go down and then select the advanced options, and that is where you'll find the auto mode install. Here we have the live CD. Live CD don't have that. We'll use the auto install to specified hard disk. Then click on enter. And then you have chosen auto installation. The installer will erase the whole dev SDA and will install Android to it. The dev SDA is our hard disk that we virtually created. And then click on yes. This is the last confirmation. Are you sure? I'll click on yes. So let me click on yes, and it will now start installing. It will start formatting and writing full screen. So I have made it to be on full screen mode so that you can see everything. And after it has installed, we now tell it to run Android x86. So I've clicked on run. And now here, sometimes this problem arises quite a lot. When you try to run it, it just gives you a black screen. Okay, it just gives you a black screen. And after doing this, so I have been trapped there. So what I'll do is when you see this black screen, what you have to do is edit on the boot. How it loads, you have to edit on the arguments. There's something we call the loading arguments, and that is what we need to factor on. Okay, so I'll just go back to my Oracle, and then I'll pause my machine. I'll just power it off. The reason why I was getting that black screen, I'll show it to you right away. I'll start my machine again so that you can see how to solve that, because our system had not started perfectly, and this is actually something. They will now be switched to full screen mode. So I'll switch it to full screen mode again. Let me see whether I can go to the not full screen mode. Yes. And now here, when I come to advanced options, since I had already installed the hard drive the first time, I don't have to come to the auto installation. I can just tell it now to boot from the local drive. I can tell it to boot from the local drive. Click on that, and you'll see now these options for Android. The first option is the one that is booting, our Android. I want to see whether scale to 100%. Let me see whether I can scale to 200%. Yes, this is what I wanted now, so that you can see everything via the full screen. Let me see whether it's displaying. So let's go to 175% so that, yeah, you can see the entire window. These are now the boot options that the Android ISO has, or the Android that we have installed. And what I needed to do is, if I now boot it to this Android, if I boot it right away to Android, it will be stuck. It will be stuck here. It should be stuck here, because this is a problem that actually normally happens. It's actually stuck there at that blue screen. So now what you need to do is to edit what we call the boot arguments. You have to edit the boot arguments and specify some things that you don't want to be checking up the mode, because it is doing this because there are some modes that are being checked and then they don't pass the tests. So you have to tell the boot to not check the different modes. And how you can do that, I'll start my virtual machine again, and then you'll see what I'll do. I'll go to advanced options, and then I'll go to boot from local drive, which is the drive that we had. The instructions are written down here. Instruction, press enter or the right key to boot the selected operating system. Press E to edit the commands before booting. This is now what we want. R to reload, C for command line. But in our case, we just want to edit, and you can see that the command has been given right down here. And what you want to do is to edit the commands before booting. So you just click on E and edit. If I click on E, I see that we have the kernel, then this is the Android command, the dev, quiet room, sd, blah, 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 blah. All that is now the command that we want to edit. So what you can do is click on E again to edit that command. And then here, you'll see that it's like this. Just use your left arrow key to, because you cannot use a mouse, you cannot use a mouse here. You cannot use a mouse here on the console. So you have to use your arrow keys. So just maneuver here with your arrow keys, and then what you need to replace is this quiet word. You just need to delete this quiet. You delete quiet, and then you specify the no mode set. So you just say no mode set, and then space, and then X force Vesa. These are the two commands that you need to add. These are the two commands that you need to add for it to boot properly. You add the no mode set and the X force Vesa. Then you can press on enter. And after doing that, you can now boot using this new command that you have edited right over here. And as you can see, it has no mode set and then X-Force Vesa. To boot, just follow the instructions down here. It's telling you press B to boot, E to edit the selected command. So in this case, what you need to do now is to press B to boot. So when our command is highlighted like that, we just press on B, and as you can see, it has started to boot our Android system. So let us wait and see. So as you can see, let me view. I'll zoom it to 100% and boom, you can see it's loading up our Android. So it will load up, and actually this will be like a phone now. This is like it's an actual Android machine which you can access Play Store. You can even install games if you wanted to. You can even do anything that you would do with your phone. The only thing is that maybe you cannot do phone calls because your computer doesn't have a SIM card. But what you can do is you can do like even WhatsApp calls, because you can be able to install all the apps, be it Instagram, be it WhatsApp, be it all the apps in between. So this is how you can natively install Android on your machine. This is how you can natively do it without using any third-party software. And this third-party software, I know some of you know them. The other third-party softwares are software such as BlueStacks. BlueStacks are normally what we call emulators. So if I can go to my browser as it's opening up for the first time, if I can search for BlueStacks, this is actually one of the most common. BlueStacks it's actually an Android app emulator. You can just install BlueStacks and you can use it to emulate Android apps. But the thing about BlueStacks is that it will be an app by itself. But in our case, what we are doing here, we are not installing any app. We are installing Android, the operating system itself, to our hard disk. So that is the difference. This one will just install as an app on your computer. But what we have done here, this is running on our hard disk. So you can create a partition. We saw how we can create partition. So you can create a partition for like 50 GB and install Android on that partition. And when you power on your machine, it will be powering on to the Android operating system. The same case, you can create a partition and install Linux. And when you power on your machine, it will be connecting to Linux. So this is the virtual Wi-Fi. I don't know whether it will connect to, it will get an IP address. Yeah, it has gotten an IP address. Awesome. So as you can see, it's actually how I would set up a normal phone. So let us see. Could you stop checking for updates? I think I could have skipped so that we can just get right into it. But yeah. So what I was telling you is that for your hardware, you can have multiple operating systems that are running. I think there was a time I had like 4 operating systems on my computer, and not having them on a virtual machine, but having them on different partitions on my hard disk. So I had Windows, I had Linux, I had Android, and I had Mac OS. So you can imagine how crazy it can get. So this Android, it's taking so much time right here, and I can skip. Let me see if I can go back. Awesome. Yeah, I can go back and just skip. Sign into your Google account, connecting to a network, quickly set up your phone. I'll say back. I just want to skip. So let us skip. Don't copy because I don't have any data. But you can see it's just very simple. This is an actual phone. Couldn't sign in. Okay, then take me to the home screen. Hmm. So let me just start again. Please stop checking for updates. I just want to specify that I'm not connected to the internet. Hmm. I could have just skipped. But now another problem comes in. Another problem comes in. Let's see. Wait a second. Don't copy. Mhm. So let our phone load. So the reason why we installed it on a virtual machine is because I could not. Let me actually sign in with my actual Gmail so that let me sign in with my dummy account, which is normally the email. Uh, um, let me use another email. Let me use another email address. Hmm. I hope Google won't keystroke my password. Let us see, let us see, let us see. Enter your password. I hope Google won't keystroke. It's keystroking. That is not my password. So what I have to do, I have to play it safe. And you can see it has logged me in. It has logged me in. Has logged me in, and all I do is I'll agree. And the good thing about setting up your Android operating system like this, especially if you install it on a partition on your hard disk as a whole on itself, like as an entity on itself on that partition, is that you'll tend to see that it's actually even faster as to if you are using an app like BlueStacks. BlueStacks. We've said we have BlueStacks, we have another one we call Nox emulator. We have so many Android emulators. If you just searched on Android emulators, you'll tend to see that there are quite a number. You can see that there are quite a lot. All these are different Android emulators. But the best one is, or the most common one, is BlueStacks. BlueStacks, Nox Player, LD Player is actually good. Even Android Studio, because Android Studio has its own emulator, because when you're developing Android apps in Android Studio, you need to test them out quite fast. So Google services, more, I'll accept everything. And now this will be set up as my phone. I can even set up my pin, but I don't want to do that right now. So it will just set up everything for me. So this is just to show you that it's actually a normal phone. I don't want to add all these Gmail stuff. Adding finishing touches. So let it finish, and then let's see how we can boot up again, or we can explore how the device currently looks like. And awesome, awesome, awesome. You can see it's asking me to set up the home app. I can tell it that it's Quick Step is my home app always. And boom, this is our Android. This is our device actually. So uh, you can see just like that, we've been able to install an Android operating system on our hardware. If I swipe down, so this will just be behaving like a normal phone. This is just a normal phone. You can go to Play Store, you can install different things. If you want to install some games, you can install some games. But if you don't have a good RAM, or let's say even the processor, if it's not that good, because you recall we were looking at processors too. But my processor for this computer is not that good, and you can see that it's running it quite well. But I have a graphics card. I don't know whether the graphics card is using, actually it's not even using the graphics card, and you can see that it's actually running perfectly. So I think I've opened up Play Store. For Play Store is you can just come to Play Store and download different apps and games. We can swipe up to go to the settings and see what the settings have. So this is basically a real phone that you can now be using. The reason why it's kind of lagging is because the computer is doing so much. We are recording a screen sharing, we are running a virtual machine on another virtual machine on Windows. So an entire operating system. And yeah, you can see, let's see the storage that we have. You recall we specified that we had like uh 8 GB 8 GB of storage. I think it should be something like that. 9.25. So yeah, because of the operating system, it also takes its own space, but it creates a virtual disk too that will also add on some space if it needs some, because we say that it can be dynamic. What I'll do is I'll go back to Play Store and see whether it has loaded. Yeah, so you can see Play Store. So this is basically how you can do this. This is basically how you can install your operating system, and in this case we are testing out with Android. View virtual screen 1. Let me scale it to 100%. You can access the gallery. You can do basically anything you would on your phone. If it's the contacts, you can see it has the pre-installed apps such as the contacts and the different Google apps. Also, if you don't want to do this, if you don't want to go through this hassle and you want to have an Android emulator, you can just pick on this. You can just pick on this and install these on top of your Windows computer. But what you have said about this is that they will be running on top of your Windows operating system. But for this one, you can install it. You can install it on its own partition on your hard disk. And that is the good thing about it. You can install it on its own partition. These are the apps that we have. These are the different apps that we have. You can add your own apps from the Play Store. You can add your own apps from the Play Store. Yeah, this is the Play Store. You can just install whatever you would want to this device as long as it's available on Play Store and it's compatible with the device itself too. So it's loading our apps and awesome. You can see, I think it was synchronizing up with my account first. I ran out of patience as it's still updating. It's still updating. But if you want to install this, the best option would be to install on its own partition, and that was the reason why we learned how to partition our disks. So I think I can look for a tutorial on YouTube to show you how you can maybe install different operating systems on different partitions, because I know there are actually some students who are dual booting their machines in such a way that they have the Windows operating system and also they have the Linux. You can try boot. You have Windows, Linux, and Android, or quadro boot. You have Linux, Windows, Android, and Mac. So that is just how flexible our hardware is. If I wanted to install something like WhatsApp, I can just search WhatsApp and download it, and it will install it, and I can set it up directly with my phone number, of which I won't be doing this right now. What I just want to show you is that you can download different apps and games. If I was to download a game like do we call it Subway Surfers, I can also install such a game. Subway Surfers, come on. So it's still searching. It's supposed to be using the internet. The internet that it's using is the same internet that my computer is using. So you just connect it to your computer network. When I think you saw me do that. It's just very simple. You just click on the Wi-Fi icon and it will show you. Yeah, this is Subway Surfers. It has more than 1 billion downloads. Let's install it too. So it will be installing in the background. I think WhatsApp has done. Let's see whether WhatsApp is done downloading. Let us see. Oh, not yet done. So they'll just install in the background. But that was just to show you that this is an actual phone, which you can do anything that you want with it. But now I say that there might be a problem, and the problem comes in when it comes to booting this device. So what I'll do is I'll turn off this machine, and if you want to turn off the machine, you can come to File and then you say Close, or you can even click on the Windows Close button, and it will say power off the machine. So that is exactly what I want to do. I'll just say power off the machine. I can save the machine state. Saving the machine state, it's like telling it to save. When you come back, it returns to where you left it. So it will just save the machine state, so that if you go back to, if maybe you power off your computer and come back to it, it should start from where you left it. That is actually a good thing. And now the problem that I was talking about is that when we start our Android OS again, we will experience the same problem that we had. So let us see. Oh, actually, now this is the good thing about saving the device state. You can see the first thing it has done, it has restored to where we were, and that is now the beauty of it. So if you don't want that problem, I think you can use that as a workaround. Instead of, you can see it's even going back to Play Store where WhatsApp was downloading and had left at 22%, and now it's at 56%. So that is what you can actually be doing. You can instead of turning off the machine, you can. So let's see whether it will go back when we even close the VirtualBox. So I'll just say save the machine state. It will save the state. So let's see. Yeah, and it has saved the state. Let me also close that Oracle and also close it on Task Manager. Task Manager is where you can completely kill a process. So let's ensure that there is no Oracle that is running in Task Manager. So we just want to see whether when we go back, we will go back to where we left our machine, which was on Play Store and downloading WhatsApp. So it's actually not running, and that's a good thing. So I'll just close Task Manager, and I hope you can all still hear me. I can see that I am vibrating. So what I'll do is I'll open up my VirtualBox again. So VirtualBox, and after opening up my VirtualBox, I'll spin up my Android machine again. I'll just start it. Just start it again, and then I'll show you a problem that happens if you turn off your machine. So even if you restart your whole computer, it will always be restoring the session that you had. And in this case, you can see it has restored the session that we had, and it's continuing from where we were. And actually, that's a really good thing. That's a really, really good thing. It shows us that our machine is quite generic and can do quite a lot without much disturbance or much interference. So it's quite flexible, in short. That's the word that I'm looking for. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to shut it down. I'll try to shut it down, but let WhatsApp finish installing. It's at 83% now. 89 should just finish up. 98, 100. Because I'll actually be using WhatsApp on my other number on this virtual machine now. So it will install WhatsApp, and after it's done installing WhatsApp, it will install the other game that we installed, which was Subway Surfers. So installing WhatsApp Messenger. Come on, come on. We need to do something else. And so this is just what I was telling you, that it's quite simple how you can test out this operating system. And all that we needed was the ISO file. The ISO file for Android. In our case, next, let me see whether I have an ISO file for another operating system. Installing, bro, it's taking an eternity to install. But let's give it the benefit of doubt. Or let's also have mercy on it because the computer is so worked up right now. Where do I find my ISOs? I think it's in the F drive components. And I think I have some ISOs on the operating systems. Yes, you can see I have some different ISOs. I have the Ubuntu, I have Phoenix. By the way, you can also use Phoenix OS to install on your hard drive. There's this OS we call Phoenix OS. I don't know whether it's here. It's called Phoenix OS. Let's search for it and see. Phoenix OS will now do this process automatically for you. You see this process that we have here with the virtual machine. It will install your Android operating system on your hard disk. It will install it automatically, and it will create the partition, and it will create the boot files. All that, it will just do all that automatically, and you can be able to load on Android. You can see Phoenix OS is an Android emulator and operating system that allows you to run Android apps, blah blah blah, on your Windows desktop. So I think it does that. It should create its own. The last time I ever used it, it was creating a partition on my hard drive and installing Linux there. You can see I also have a Linux ISO. So if you have all these ISOs, that is something that you can actually test out and see how they might perform. If you experience any problems, you can maybe Google or see the remedies for such certain problems. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll just turn off this machine completely. I won't save the state. I'll actually turn it off completely. I'll just say power off the machine. When I power off the machine, I think when I try to now start it again, It will go to the installation bit, and let's see, not the installation but the boot up screen. This is what you call the boot. This is like the bootloader. So you always have to come here, go to advanced option, then you say boot from local drive. And then if you try now booting again from the first option, it will go through the same problem, the black screen itself. And the reason is because we did not provide the comment that we had. You recall the comment that we had, how we were specifying that no mode set and also xforce VESA. So that is the reason why, if you don't want to be keeping on putting those commands, you can just be saving the state of your Android virtual machine. But now if you want to permanently have those commands automatically, you can come there and say boot from local drive, and then now come here and I I have not been able to do it. Or let's see whether it will work when we do it like this. So what we need to do is to, if we now want to have those commands automatically, we need to edit the file that contains those commands. And the first thing that we need to do is you just say make directory and then mnt and then /sda, and you can see the Android operating system is found at dev sda1, but now we are making another directory for mnt and sda. And after making that directory, what you need to do is just mount, you just say dev block sda sda1, which was you can see that up here Android is found at sda1, and then space, and then you say mnt /sda, the one that we created up there. And after doing that, we can now edit the file that we have. To edit that file, you just use mnt sda, then you say grab, because grab is now what acts as the bootloader. Then you say menu.lst, and you can see here now it displays that file. It displays that file that has the different images. This is what you are seeing. The first one is the Android x86. The second one you are seeing Android debug mode. The third one you are seeing Android debug no mode test, and then the last one was the debug video. This is now the file that loads all those. And in our case, we just come to the first one and replace the word quiet with no mode set. We come to quiet and then we delete. For you to edit it, you have to insert. So you come here, go to the quiet, and then you click on I to go to the insert mode. And then now you can be able to delete the quiet here permanently and say no mode set and then xforce VESA. And after doing that, we can now quit. We can now quit, and to quit you just press escape. Okay, so you just press escape to go back to the read mode. Right now I cannot be able to edit. And then you press to put a command in Vim, you just press the full colon, and the reason why you can see it is because my screen is zoomed up. So the full colon, and to quit, you just type WQ to quit and save the changes. And it has quit and saved the changes. So yeah, this should be it. That should just be it. And if now we restart the device after doing that, it should now power on perfectly. Let's actually even shut it off from here. And now if we run it now, it should be powering on perfectly without any problems. So let's see. We go to advanced options and then boot from local drive. So this means now I don't have to always come to be editing. If I press on enter, you can see now it's just booting in directly. It's just booting in directly, and it should give me the Android logo. So you can see it's quite some work, but if you install it on the hard disk, I don't think you would have to do this. I think this is because of compatibility issues when it comes to the virtual running it on a virtual machine. Okay, if one installs it on the hard disk, it should not be giving you so much problems. But after doing that, I have solved it perfectly. It should not be bringing any problems now. So you can see now it's running perfectly. But if you don't want to be going through all that hassle, you can just be saving the state of your machine every time you want to exit from it. So that is it for the Android one. And for the Windows one, it's just very simple. If maybe you're on Linux and you want to install a Windows operating system on top of that, or even I am on Windows 11, but I have a Windows 10 ISO. What I can do is for Windows, it's actually even less than 5 minutes. For Android, because there's so much that comes in, that is the reason why it gave us quite a ton of headache. But I'm pretty sure now you get the gist of it. Just power off the machine. And we can have multiple machines, okay? In this case, I'll just create a new machine. In this case, it will be a Windows machine. Let me see the setup that I have. I have Windows 10 Pro, official Windows 11 ISO, official Windows 10 ISO. Let me see whether the ISO exists. No, it does not. I have these Windows 10 Pro. I don't know if I copy and paste it to my desktop, how long it will take, because it's currently on my hard drive and I don't want to risk it having any problem. But as it's copying, it should take less than 1 minute. How I can create another, or before even doing that, do you have any questions? Anyone who has a question can just raise their hand, or if you have any question, just say as we are winding up. Because for Windows, it's just something very basic. It's just the same setup that one can, but if you have any question, you can shoot it out on the chat or unmute and ask. So the Windows ISO is copying. to the desktop. And what we've said is that what you just need are the ISO files. And in this case, I'll just call it Windows 10 because I am using Windows 10. And you just specify the type to be Microsoft Windows and the Windows version to be Windows 10, 64-bit. Also, if you wanted to see how Windows 7 looked like, you can look for Windows 7 ISO. You can see even we have the Windows Vista, we have the Windows XP. If you wanted to see how these windows were looking like, you can look for their ISOs online and then simulate them on VirtualBox and see how they were operating. In this case, we have the Windows 10 64 bits and then go to next. I'll give Windows 2 gigs of RAM and then create virtual disk hard disk now. And the recommended virtual hard disk for Windows is 50 GB. I don't have 50 GB. I think I have, oh damn, I just have 13 GB free. I don't even know whether it will be able to create that. It can even fry my machine. Let's see. I'll just specify like 10 GB fixed size. Let's just go with dynamically 50 gig. I cannot do 50 gig. I'll just give it. Let's give it something like 10 gig or 8 gig. But Windows actually requires more than 10 GB. That's why it was defaulting to 50 GB. So if I start, it will tell me to specify my ISO to. So let's see whether, yeah. So you can see here it's specifying the Android ISO, but in this case I don't want the Android ISO. I want to add and attach now the Windows ISO from my desktop. Here's my desktop. I attach my Windows ISO, then open, then choose the Windows ISO, then start. But for Windows, it should be actually very simple. You can see it just takes us straight away to the install screen for Windows 10 in this case. So for Windows, it's actually quite simple to install. Yeah, you can see it's the default install screen for Windows. You just click on next, and then you say install now. And then the setup will start. It will show you the drives that you have, and then the process is just the same. So for Windows, there is no problem with that. Windows is just straightforward as it can always be. I accept the license agreement. Just custom install. We have now the unallocated space. Yeah, you can see it's actually not accepting because I have specified 10 GB. This is the 10 GB that I had given it, and it's telling me that Windows requires at least 10 GB, 10.6 GB. So I was short of 600 megabytes, and that is the reason why it can't install. But you just get the gist of it, and it's as simple as that. If you just have the ISO, it will just load it up perfectly on that disk, and as simple as that. Yeah, so for Windows you can see it's very simple, very simple. So I can just close my machine, and when you're creating if you want to install Windows, when you're creating, ensure that you give more than 20 GB, because you also have to factor in the storage space that the Windows is going to be using. So for Windows, it's just very simple, and I'll just close it because I have saved the state. I did not want to save the state. But as you've seen, for Windows, it's quite very simple as compared to Android. There are some things that we had to disable. Even if you wanted to add another one, let's say add for Linux. So Linux, I don't know which setup for Linux I have. Which is the setup for Linux that I have? Let us see. The setup for Linux is, I think I have Ubuntu or something, operating systems. Ubuntu, yes, I have Ubuntu desktop. I also have Arco Linux. There's this one that is called Arco Linux. Let us see how Ubuntu will behave. So I'll just say Linux and then I'll say Ubuntu. Where is Ubuntu? Ubuntu, I don't know whether it's 64-bit or 32. Let's see whether it's 64-bit or 32. I don't know whether it's Ubuntu 2110 AMD 64. Let's say it's 64-bit. And then next, and then Ubuntu recommends 1 GB, and then 10 GB virtual image drive. So dynamically allocated. Next. Ubuntu, I'll give it like 5 GB or 6 GB, and then create Linux. So I'll just start it, and then I'll provide the ISO. So let's start it. I think I can delete the Windows ISO. It's taking up my space. I don't have any space on my machine. So I select the startup disk for Ubuntu. The startup disk for Ubuntu, I'll create one, and it is found in the hard disk. Where is my hard disk? Programs and backup. And then we go to Xenu disk, program setups. What do we call them? Operating systems. And then Ubuntu. There's Ubuntu. Ubuntu, and then I choose Ubuntu, and then start it. And then the installation process is just the same as you would. So it gives you the grab version of the Ubuntu installation. So you just I've selected Ubuntu on the first trial, and as you can see, it is giving me the installer for Ubuntu. So this is how you can test out different operating systems. In this case, we are using VirtualBox, but it just shows you how diverse we can test out these different software systems on our hardware. If you wanted to install it directly on your hardware, these are now different partitions that you would create on your machine, and then install that specific operating system that you need. But in this case, you also need to ensure that you have the respective ISO setup files for these different operating systems. That is just the catch itself only. Just ensure that you have the ISO setup files. If you're installing on the different partitions, you'll be using something like a flash disk. So the flash disk is where you'll make it to be bootable and just install to specific partitions on your hard disk, the ones that you have specified. So yeah, that is how you can have different systems, I'm pretty sure it's taking time because I'm using an external hard disk and sometimes it just fails on me. But as you saw, it should be straightforward from here on the next processes to follow. So that is just it. Maybe if we have any questions, if no questions, at least you've seen how you can do different operating systems on your hardware systems. Yeah, I think I could have tested out. I can do not save the machine state. Yeah, Ubuntu was still loading, so that was it. Let me see whether, but macOS cannot work, cannot work, out of the box. I'm pretty sure. macOS X. So you can see you can even load macOS. I don't know which macOS version I have. So let's see. I think it was Catalina or something, or Mojave. So let's see, program setups, operating systems, macOS. Let's see the macOS we have. I think it's this Niresh Mojave. Yeah. So you can see the Mojave. It's even a DMG file. So for Mojave, it's not even in ISO. It's on DMG. So let's see Mojave. Mojave. High Sierra, El Capitan, Snow Leopard. Yeah, I think for Mac, the version that I have, it's not even here. It is not even here. High Sierra. Yeah, because I think Mojave it's higher than this. It's higher than High Sierra. And the likes of Big Sur and the likes of all those, everything in between. But in this Lenovo computer, I have actually installed 2022 version, or it was it 2020 version of macOS. It was called macOS Monterey. This macOS Monterey. It's working perfectly on this Lenovo, but I have installed it on a separate, on its own, what do you call it? I've installed it on its own. I don't have 20 gig of virtual RAM. Cancel. So create a virtual hard disk now. Next. Dynamically, I don't have 20 gig. I have like 10. So what I was saying is I have installed macOS on this Lenovo. I think I'll be able to show you if we meet physically. I'll be able to show you me booting up to macOS on my hard disk on my SSD because I just installed it afresh on the SSD. So let us see whether it will be able to pick up a DMG file for macOS. But this is the rate of this working is close to zero. Calculus as x approaches zero. So let's add for Niresh Mojave. Let's see, add virtual DMG. So let's see whether it will work. Niresh Mojave DMG. Yep. Yeah, I think it's experiencing some shell problems. UEFI interactive shell. So for macOS, it's not as straightforward as this. and especially for macOS. I have never run it on the virtual machine. I've always installed macOS on its own partition. So for macOS, that is a story for another day. Yeah, but I can forward you some resources that can help you do all these things. Also install maybe on your physical machines if you want to, but proceed with cautions because if you mess with your hardware system, it's quite difficult to go back, or to, if you don't know where the problem is, it can be quite a huge problem for you. So that is it for today. If we don't have any questions, I think we can call it a weekend. Yeah, I have tried to record the session. I hope everything will be all right. But that was it for today. Can stop the recording.